Hey gang, welcome back. Last week we did our introduction about our series on messages. And we started that whole thing with some examples of some company logos and some of the hidden messages inside of that. Well, we're going to kind of continue on that theme today, and we're going to look at some company slogans. So company slogans can convey a message to us the same way that their logos do. Now take, for example, my buddy Neil over here, right? He's with Clear Choice Auto Sales. And if there's one thing that's clear, you got to choose Clear Choice Auto Sales. Pretty obvious what they're conveying with this particular message. So these guys are a little bit of a boutique shop. You may not know them, but I would certainly recommend Neil if you ever are buying a car. But let's look at some others that you might recognize, right? So there's a number of very popular slogans out there. So kind of like what we did last time with the word association, now I'm going to call out some of the slogans of companies that we've got and see if we can match those up, right? Thank you. Appreciate that. So how about we do one such as just do it, right? I think most people know that that would be Nike, right? How about be all you can be? That one comes from the Army. How about I just ate the whole thing? Anyone? That'd be Alka-Seltzer. How about what can Brown do for you? That's UPS. How about expect more, pay less? That's Target. Do you? Mountain Dew. So we've got a lot of examples of these slogans, and they're all conveying a certain message that they want us to understand. That when we think of that message, we think of their company. And it's very intentional. So what did all those slogans have in common? Except for the Alka-Seltzer, which I just had to throw in there because I find that hilarious. Well, let me tell you another story before I give you the exact answer there. So I think we all know the company Apple. So we've got the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, right? There's the letter I that's common in all of these products from Apple, right? That I is really self-serving, right? It's about us, it's our devices. In the same way that you think about some of those other slogans, what can Brown do for you? Do you, just do it. Expect more, pay less. They're all very self-serving. Those are the messages that these companies get because they want us to know that they are willing to do anything it takes to get our business. They're very intentional about that stuff. So as we transition now really to the larger topic at hand, which is the messages we receive from the world around us, I want to get into a lot of that. I want to start first with kind of the small scale, right? Let's talk about our friends, the messages we get with our friends, the messages that we send with our friends, right? So when I think about the friendships that I've had over the years, there's really two main messages that I would say we get from our friendships: validation and security. Validation is really a scenario where our friends are validating that we belong to someone or something, that there's an attachment, right? So when I was a kid, I had two best friends around your age, right? Mike and Joe. Mike lived a couple blocks away from me. Joe lived about 8 or 10 blocks away across town. It's a very small town. So when Mike and I would get off the bus in about 7th grade, his house was on the way home from mine. So half the time I'd get home, half the time I got off the bus, I would really just go to Mike's house. We'd just hang out. I never asked him to hang out. We'd just stop at his house, we'd play with his dog. He had a Springer Spaniel named Holly, who was the greatest dog ever. She was so friendly, but that's a little off topic. But we would just come over. I would just come over and we'd just hang out. I never really asked permission to do that. And the same thing kind of happened with Joe through the years as well. And stick with me, if you ever hear more stories from me, you'll likely hear about Joe. But Joe would come to my house. We'd either switch buses and he'd come on mine, or I'd go on his. But we would just go over to our houses. We never really asked. It was never like we made plans. We just did it. There was this validation that we were just friends. We always belonged with each other. We could hang out anytime, anywhere, any place, and it didn't matter. That's kind of that validation message that we get. It's not really something that we say. Similarly with security, that's kind of like that, I got your back. And again, you know, being 11, 12, 13, 14, no one's really ever going to say that out loud because it just sounds awkward. but it happens all the time in what we do. When you're having a bad day, you know you've got a friend or a couple of friends that you know you can go to, that you're struggling and you just need some time away from everything else, and you know that they're going to be there for you, right? Who is it that you text when you're in trouble? Who is it that bails you out when you're in times of need? That's that security. They're there for you and you know that. You don't even necessarily need to talk about it. So I've been doing a lot of talking right now, so I'd like to break up into our groups again and have you guys talk a little bit more about this validation and security kinds of messages with our friends. Welcome back to our session again. I hope that last conversation was good. Some of those questions were a little personal. I'm hoping you guys felt brave to share amongst the group of friends that you guys have here in our small groups. So now I want to kind of take another bigger picture from what we were talking about. So we were talking about our friends and the messages we get from them as we think about the world around us. And that's thinking about our society, right? We live in 21st century US culture. So let's talk about that, because that's another key thing that we want to get to. So what are some of the messages that we get from our culture? If we think back to the beginning there, we were talking about this self-serving message, right? That is definitely one that we can think of, that it's all about us. It's very us-focused. You know, what expectations, what empowerment, what can we do to self-indulge almost? That's pervasive in a lot of advertising that you guys probably hear a lot about. But what about some other messages that we get? How about if I said something like this? You're entitled to your own opinion. Do we as a culture actually believe that? We say that all the time, but do we actually believe that? Are we really entitled to our own opinion? What if our opinion is different than somebody else's? Then what do we do? What opportunity does that give our culture to respond? In a similar way, how about order and justice? Those are big words probably for junior high here, but think about it like this. If I'm entitled to my own opinion, does that mean I can just do whatever I want because it's my opinion that I can eat candy for breakfast? Or in a larger context, do I have the right to do whatever I want in society? Can I drive on the left side of the road? Can I murder somebody if I want to? Or is there a message, is there an understanding and expectation in our society about how this stuff really needs to work together? How about something as simple as treating other people, right? Is there a message of just being nice to people? Is there an expectation that we should always be nice to people? Do you get that from others around you in our world? Or once we're wrong, does that give us the right to just do whatever we want, act however we want? How about sex? Did I just say sex in church? I did just say sex in church. But seriously, it's all throughout our music, our TV, the internet. You can't turn your head without noticing it. So what does our society tell us about that? What's okay, what's not okay? How is that maybe different from what we hear in church? How about second chances? We see time and time again in our culture, people make mistakes because people make mistakes all the time. Are we a society that we embrace second chances? We give people the opportunity to redeem themselves, or do we tear them down and never let them get back the lives that they once held before? So these are some big questions for you guys to go through in your small groups now. So I want you to break up, talk about some of these. Your leaders will have the questions with them, and dive into these and get a little bit more deep behind what it is that we just went through.